Video showing the Syrian rebels reportedly shooting down a government jet and yelling Allah Akbar.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! سقط الطيارة Allahu Akbar!
Yeah, hard to take that two ways. That's the same thing that Major Hassan said before opening up fire at Fort Hood, and what the terrorists, I imagine, screamed on the plane before they smashed into buildings. Joining us now is Laura Ingraham.
Sounds like James Madison, something he would have said.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'll look again, but I don't remember.
Well, they were writing Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Congress shall raise armies, but appropriations shouldn't be longer than 2 years. They were thinking basically in those terms. That's what it was all about.
I sense the sarcasm. Where do you stand on all this? The president's announcement on Saturday, then I'm going to wait for Congress to vote. But if you ask me, I would go and attack.
Yeah, well, look, for all the people, and I know John McCain's coming up, and I know he's going to make this point that, look, at this point, regardless of whether you like Obama or not, and this has nothing to do with whether we like Obama or not. This question is a question of whether this is good for the United States of America.
Right.
People are talking about weapons of mass destruction. It's a horrible thing. We have a current weapon of mass destruction in this country. It's called unemployment. And this president's #1 focus was going to be jobs. I think we can all conclude now that that whole thing is just out the window. This whole jobs thing is just an afterthought.
Well, so is our foreign policy, though.
It's confused. It's muddled. But the idea that the Republicans and John McCain and Lindsey Graham march out of the White House yesterday and say, well, the president really screwed all this all up, and we should have done a lot more. We should have armed these rebels, but we really have to move forward because our credibility is at stake. No. Our credibility is not at stake. The president's credibility is at stake.
Isn't that one and the same, or no?
No, it actually is not. What's good for our country and what's good for President Obama politically are two separate things. And I think he has made things very difficult for himself and for our country, but it doesn't mean that we make things worse by getting involved in a conflict where apparently we're going to be arming people who are screaming Allahu Akbar as they shoot down a jet or whatever it is they're doing over there.
And normally the president doesn't seem to go to Congress, to consult with them, and he said something about the red line, and if you cross it, he didn't say.
He had a Bill Buckner moment.
Ball by Buckner.
But now,
this is for. Oh, sorry, Bill.
So why is he going to Congress now?
Oh, Mookie, yeah. Yes. No, I'm not going to say anything about Bucky Dunn. But this is a bungled series of decisions that have been made, and it's almost like it's been done between tea times. You can't figure out their approach here. And Kerry, the embarrassing photo from 2009, the dinner with
Nancy Pelosi defied President Bush.
Can you pass the sarin, please? I mean, what was happening at that table?
Yeah, John
wait, he didn't say sarin, did he? I thought he said salt.
Kerry was friends with Assad before he
was against him. Yeah, it was against him. So it's a mess.
So for people looking in right now, in your estimation, there's absolutely no reason we should be involved in Syria.
Our country is really hurting, and I think our people are extremely skeptical for good reason. We were told that the engagement in Afghanistan, we understood it was not going to be an unending war, and then 10 years later, people saw we were still there. We lost a young command sergeant on August 31st on foot patrol, Sergeant Bauman. We have still people being killed there. And for the neoconservatives, a lot of my friends, to say, our credibility is at stake. I would submit to them that our credibility might be at stake because of very confused foreign policy over the last 12 years, let alone over the last 12 months.
Which Americans didn't have any say in. It's this current administration's say in, and there was a former Secretary of State, now the current one. Here is Congressman Turner, one of the many Republicans who's going to be asked to support the president when this goes up as early as September 9th. Listen to what he said to us this morning.
He has no strategy. We don't understand the risk. We don't understand who we're fighting for. And he has an unexplainable policy with his imaginary red line where, over 100,000 people have been killed. And yet the president's acknowledged previously chemical weapons had likely been used. But yet now that it's been a large scale, the president wants to take action to support his imaginary red line. I don't think there's an appetite in Congress to bail the president out for this.
That's what basically you're feeling. Charlie Rangel, a Democrat among the people, says, it's confused and I'm not going to vote for this.
This is the time to bring the country together. Red state, blue state, purple territory. This is purple territory. The American people want a sober and, I think, judicious approach to the use of our military.
But you are not saying...
The military is overtaxed and I think, overcommitted already.
You do know Assad's role in fueling the insurgency. He has blood on his hands on American soldiers.
Of course he does. Who doesn't have blood on their hands in the Middle East right now?
You know he's a vital ally to Iran. And without Iran, they probably have no entrance to fuel Hezbollah.
We made Iran stronger, sadly. And I was one of the most vociferous supporters of the Iraq War. that strengthened Iran's hand. In the last 10 years, we got involved in 2 major military actions. Our country is poorer. We have more unemployment. We have Barack Obama as president. We wouldn't have Obama as president, sadly, probably if we didn't go into Iraq. So, yes, all of those things are true, and it's true that we do not have a defined role. Maybe somehow this will emerge in the next week. I doubt it.
Right.
The chemical weapons are atrocious. There's no doubt about that. But aside from that, when it comes to the Civil War, you got who we would consider bad guys killing each other. So why get involved in that? What's interesting, though, is when you look at the people who are now saying that we've got to do something about Assad, you look at the president, you look at John Kerry, Chuck Hagel, Joe Biden. They all opposed George Bush playing tough with Assad.
What about sarin gas against the Kurds? I mean, Christopher Hitchens and I would go around and around, the late Christopher Hitchens, and he had this incredible video he would always show me about what happened to the Kurds. None of that mattered back then. So what is the actual test for this president and this today, where we are with all the realities that are on the ground now? What is our real test of foreign policy? What is it? What does it mean? And for people to say you have to support the president, the Constitution is very clear. There is not a blank check for any executive, Republican or Democrat, to bring the country into another ill-conceived, undefined
John McCain.
But if you
Article 1, Section 8, everybody today, read it. Read your Constitution.
And even having the 5 military ships there in the Mediterranean Sea ain't cheap.
And Russia, by the way, at 5 a.m. today, Russia today is sending out these tweets that I was retweeting. So we've detected this ballistic missile launch.
Right.
Nobody knew who launched it. It looks like it was a joint exercise. Yeah. You reported America and the United States. Russia, we're trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, things are very tense over in the Middle East. We're not a proxy war.
I have not said that. I don't believe necessarily that non-action is the best action here. So I don't agree with you on that. Although I agree with you that this policy couldn't be more muddled or more unimpressive.
I said military action. There's a lot we can do geopolitically. Number one, get our country stronger.
Part of the reason why they have no credibility and why Assad legitimately might be stunned is because Senator Kerry, chairman of the Foreign Relations, sat down with him and called him a friend. The former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, says he does not stand for President Bush's policies are not my policies. Hillary Clinton said he's a reformer. He thought that he had this administration eating out of the palm of his hand.
President Bush, Vladimir Putin. I looked into his soul, his eyes. I mean, it was a moment.
But he knew what his style was.
Cue the Lionel Richie music, okay? Next we'll be dancing on the ceiling. I mean, no one understands. This is what you're making my point. No one understands what America's role is in the Middle East today, given the promises that were made to the people who are funding this war, going into debt over this war, dying, bleeding, getting wounded. We do all the Wounded Warrior stuff on Fox, all this great work. So many of these men and women are broken coming back to this country. We can say it's limited engagement today, but most of the military experts say that there is no limited engagement that is going to turn the tide. So maybe it'll help credibility in the short term, but in the long term, a strategic goal will not be achieved by a military strike or 2 or 3 strikes.